Good evening, I'm Faye Kwan. Our top stories for tonight. US President Donald Trump expects a stabilization force to be deployed to Gaza soon. And the World Health Organization says over 16,500 Palestinians are in need of urgent medical care. All that and more coming up on AWANI International. President Donald Trump expects a US-led international stabilization force to be deployed in Gaza very soon. It's part of his post-war plan for the enclave, which remains in crisis amid a humanitarian emergency and continued Israeli strikes.
Very soon. It's going to be very soon. And Gaza is working out very well. And you haven't been hearing too much about problems. And I'll tell you, we've had countries that have volunteered. If there's a problem with Hamas, as an example, or a problem with anything, but they volunteered to, on a single basis, go in and take care of it. We have very powerful countries in this coalition. And
the force will be tasked with protecting civilians, securing border areas, and training Palestinian police. Trump's comments come as the UN Security Council prepares to negotiate a resolution to authorize a 2-year mandate for a transitional governing body. The draft would allow a 20,000-strong stabilization force to use all necessary means to implement its mandate. While Hamas has yet to confirm it will demilitarize, a key part of Trump's 20-point plan, the force is expected to target and dismantle its offensive infrastructure and prevent it from rebuilding. Currently, more than 16,500 Palestinians in Gaza are in urgent need of medical care, according to the World Health Organization. Its Director General, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, urges more countries to accept patients who require treatment not available in the Strip. He also called for all evacuation routes, including those from the West Bank, to be open to facilitate the transfer of patients in need. The WHO recently evacuated 19 critically ill patients from Gaza to Italy for specialized medical care. Despite the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, the death toll in Gaza continues to climb. At least 241 people have been killed and another 609 injured since October 10th, while more than 10,000 Palestinians remain buried under the rubble. Meanwhile, Israel's Defense Minister, Israel Katz, has ordered the military to destroy all Hamas tunnels in Gaza, saying it will lead to the group's downfall. More updates coming your way right after the break. Welcome back. China's exports took an unexpected dip in October, the first fall in 8 months, as demand from the United States plunged. Official data shows shipments dropped 1.1% from a year ago, mainly dragged down by a steep 25% fall in exports to America. That slump was too large to be offset by modest gains to other markets, including the European Union and Southeast Asia.
Beijing has been trying to reduce its reliance on the US since Donald Trump's return to the White House reignited fears of another trade war. But with more than $400 billion worth of goods sold to the US each year, no other market comes close in size. Economists estimate that loss has shaved about 2 percentage points of China's export growth, roughly 0.3% of GDP. The weaker figures also reflect a high base from last year, when factories rushed orders to major markets in anticipation of Trump's comeback. Even so, many believe Chinese exporters have now pushed as much as they can into global markets for the time being. Tensions between China and the US flared in early October after Trump threatened 100% tariffs on Chinese goods. The mood has since eased slightly following a meeting between Trump and President Xi Jinping in South Korea last week. Both leaders agreed to extend their trade truce for another year. Still, Chinese goods headed to the U.S. now face an average tariff of around 45%, well above the 35% level that many economists say wipes out manufacturers' profit margins.
Sudan's paramilitary Rapid Support Forces says it has agreed to a U.S.-brokered ceasefire proposal, raising hopes for a pause in the country's devastating conflict. The announcement came on Thursday, weeks after the RSF captured the city of El Fasher in Darfur. The group says it has accepted a plan put forward by the US, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Egypt, aimed at allowing aid into the hardest-hit areas.
In a statement, the RSF also said it's ready to discuss a broader cessation of hostilities and a political transition in Sudan. The army, however, has yet to respond. The country's Security and Defense Council met earlier this week, but stopped short of a clear decision, while several senior officers have voiced opposition to the truce. The proposal, introduced in September, calls for a 3-month humanitarian pause, followed by a permanent ceasefire and a transition to civilian rule. The war between Sudan's army and the RSF began in April 2023, after a power struggle between the two forces. The fighting has killed tens of thousands, displaced millions, and plunged the country into what the United Nations described as one of the world's worst humanitarian crises.
US President Donald Trump will hold bilateral talks with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán later today, their first meeting since Trump returned to the White House earlier in the year. The longtime allies are expected to discuss energy security, particularly Hungary's dependence on Russian oil, as Trump pushes to isolate Moscow economically. Now, Trump has been urging European nations to curb purchases of Russian oil, saying they help fund Moscow's war in Ukraine. But Hungary has kept strong energy ties with Russia since the conflict began in 2022, drawing criticism from its EU and NATO allies. Hungarian officials say Orbán will seek exemptions from US energy sanctions and raise the possibility of renewed dialogue between Washington and Moscow. The meeting comes as Budapest continues to resist EU plans to phase out Russian gas imports by 2027, a policy Orbán calls economically unsustainable. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has announced that Kazakhstan will join the Abraham Accords, the US brokered agreement aimed at normalizing ties between Israel and Muslim-majority nations. The announcement came as Trump met Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev and 4 other Central Asian leaders at the White House, as Washington seeks to strengthen ties in a region long influenced by Russia and China.
In a post on Truth Social, Trump said a signing ceremony would take place soon, adding that many more countries were seeking to join the accords. The Kazakh government confirmed that discussions were in their final stage. The move is largely symbolic, as Kazakhstan has maintained diplomatic relations with Israel since 1992, shortly after gaining independence following the collapse of the Soviet Union. Since their creation in 2020, the Abraham Accords have brought Israel into formal relations with the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Morocco. Trump has expressed optimism that Saudi Arabia could be next, though Riyadh has insisted that progress depends on a pathway to Palestinian statehood.
The UN Security Council has lifted sanctions on Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara ahead of his meeting with US President Donald Trump next week. Shara, who led a rebel offensive that toppled Bashar al-Assad in December 2024, was named transitional president after 13 years of civil war. Washington said the decision sent a strong political signal, recognizing that Syria had entered a new era since Assad's ouster.
Shara was previously under UN sanctions as the leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, an Islamist group formerly linked to al-Qaeda. The UN also lifted sanctions on Syrian Interior Minister Anas Khattab. The United States removed HTS from its list of foreign terrorist organizations in July. Shah's upcoming visit to Washington marks a stunning turnaround for a man once branded a terrorist with a $10 million bounty on his head. Shah is due to meet Trump at the White House on Monday, following what Trump described as good progress toward peace in Syria. The two last met in May during Trump's visit to Riyadh.
In other news, Tesla CEO Elon Musk has secured the largest compensation package in history, worth nearly $1 trillion. The deal, approved by 75% of Tesla shareholders, is expected to make him the world's first trillionaire. The vote was seen as crucial for Tesla's future, with most investors believing the package is key to retaining Musk and driving further innovation. Tesla sales had slipped in the year since Musk aligned himself with US President Donald Trump, a relationship that ended in May. Under the terms of the package, Musk must boost Tesla's market value from $1.4 trillion to $8.5 trillion over the next decade. He is also required to deploy 1 million self-driving robotaxi vehicles into commercial operation. If he achieves these targets and other performance goals, he will be rewarded with hundreds of millions of new Tesla shares. Musk currently holds about 500 million shares, equivalent to a 15% stake in the company. This week on Wu Says, we turn our focus to sustainability and what it really means for ASEAN's future beyond 2030. How is Malaysia faring in its progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals compared to its regional peers? Here's a segment from the conversation with Professor Emeritus Datuk Dr. Wu Wing Tai.
SDGs is more than climate action.
Okay.
It's also biodiversity protection. You know, you could have no climate change, but still wiped out species on a large scale because of pollution, for example, and just mindless deforestation, or the use of unsustainable agricultural tactics. And it's just like you could be very rich, but that could be highly unequal society. So you have some very rich people, but you have a bunch of very poor who have very short, miserable lives. So SDGs is much more broader than just climate action. So there's good news on the climate action, but not so good news on all the other indicators in the world. We are not on track, the world as a whole, to achieve any of the SDGs.
Okay.
And in the case of Malaysia, my organization publishes an annual score of which gives you the level of SDG achievement in each country of the world.
Oh, wow.
So we call that the SDG index. That has become the standard for the world because the SDG index is cited in 40% of the reports submitted under the nationally determined contributions of each country. Each country submit a report to the UN, and 40% of them cite this. Let me tell you this: the Malaysia score on the overall ranking on SDGs has been going up. Like in 2024, we were roughly 64 in over 100, and now we are around 69 over 100. So that's definitely progress. That is like being happy by having low expectations. Because we clearly can go a lot faster. I'll tell you why. Because if you look at our rank, in 2020, we rank number 60 out of 167 countries. But we have been falling every year since. By 2023, at the end of COVID, we had fallen to 78 in the world out of the 167 countries. And the latest report that came out in June 2025, we have fallen to 84. So we have went from 60, rank 60 in 2020 to 84 in 2025.
Catch the full conversation on AWANI International and across our social media platforms.
That concludes AWANI International for tonight. Stay with us as we track the strategies and power shifts shaping the new global order. For more updates, visit international.astroawani.com and follow us on social media. I'm Fei Kwan. Thank you for watching and good night.